Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Sorry this is a couple days late. I unfortunately had a bit of a busy, hectic weekend. I was doing everything from my anniversary to the fact that I was on vacation. I'll also be posting another video in a few days. Probably a pre-release pack opening because I've been wanting to get one because their pulls have been really good. Also, I've been trying to figure out which decks to do deck decks on. Been in the Halloween mood. So I was going to do my snake deck, and I realized that was so casual, even I was embarrassed by it. So I'm probably going to take that one to the shop, give it some love, tune it up a bit, and then we're going to do that one. I wanted to do a lot of my dark-themed decks. So we're doing my Mono Black Demon deck today. I'd said a while back I'm probably going to save my Rakdos deck for Halloween weekend. I thought that'd be a fun thing. So, my first commander deck was Kalia, but it wasn't the first one I actually owned because I bought the Nyxilis mono-colored Plainswalker deck back in 2014, just as a template. I was building Kalia and my zombie deck kind of sort of at the same time, and this is pretty much the evolution of that deck. Now I will say it's nowhere near powerful in a 4-person pod, but this thing, despite the fact that I've nerfed it heavily, because this is obviously that deck, I used it as a training dummy against all my other decks, and the problem with that was every time I needed a good card that happened to be in the deck, took it out. You're going to see that the mana base. The mana base is basic as hell. And somehow this deck works. Somehow this deck is still very nasty in 1v1. And teams. It's a demon deck with, a life loss. It's also a little combo-y. It's a lot of fun. The non-partnered commander is Taveshzat Doomed to Fools. Originally it was Obnix, but I threw him in my Rakdos deck when I made that. Then it was Bells and Lock for a while. But Taveshzat, I just love the way he rolls. I've gotten to Ultimate in 1v1 Commander so many times and just stolen an enemy's commander. It feels great. I've also done it in groups. I've never actually won, but I've done it, and it's been pretty damn good. There's a lot of draw cards, lost life. The problem is, if you saw my Kalia deck, or my Mono Black Zombie deck, I play Magic as a fan. I don't have all the money in the world to spend on cards. So this does not have the monsters that deck had. Like I said, the mana base from Yawgmoth to, Cabal Coffers, all that stuff is in other prioritized decks. So you're not going to see Potence in here. You're not going to see Phyrexian Arena. So, like I said, this is actually a very fair 1v1 deck. And it wins more than I thought it should. It's not good enough to take into a 4v4. I'm never taking this to the LGS and seeing how it stacks up. It will get destroyed. But against 1v1, it punches above its weight class, surprisingly. It's probably just because of the power of the demons. And I've got a lot of, your simple ramp lands that keep me on curve. Speaking of which, we're going to start with the terrible mana base. So, Baron Moor. We all know what this is. Hey, this is the original from this deck. Bonder's Enclave. Drawing cards for a creature that's, if you have a creature of power 4 or greater, that happens real quick in this deck. If I ever manage to get another copy of Obnix, it's going to be the commander again. And when Nyxilis was the commander, he was insane. Just getting out that demon the turn he hits the ground and then hiding behind him and slowly draining life, man. I could not believe how powerful those Plainswalker commanders were. I'm kind of sad that they still make Plainswalker commanders, because just some of them are so insane. He says as he's got a Plainswalker commander. Also, one of the earliest things I played in Magic was that Magic Battle Mage, for the computer and PS1. I actually eventually got both versions. And I always played as Taveshzat in the campaign, so I always liked the lore around him and Jared Carthalion, Christina of the Woods, like that whole thing with Ravadel. So I was happy when Commander Legends brought a lot of those guys back. Ghost Quarter. It's good to nuke a non-basic or any land really. Again, it's an original from that deck, and I really like it. It's been a clutch helper. Polluted Mire, same thing as Baron Moore, just a different cycling cost. Strip Mine. Again, like my friend the Ghost Quarter, this thing is nice. I really should put a Mortuary Mire in this. This mana base is so neglected, so here is the rest of the darn mana base. Ugh. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32. So, yeah, your standard, 36 to 38, this is 37, land mana base, but the quality of it is so jank. This is the main reason I would never take this to an LGS. I'd be so embarrassed. Oh, and I've talked with people off YouTube, and people have asked. So, this is in a black Ultimate Guard Boulder, and I use slate colored dragon shields for these. Start telling people what my sleeves and accompanying deck boxes are. I love Ultimate Guard, but my LGS can rarely get them in, and I have every color of dragon shields under the sun. Nyxilis Reignited. Not as good as the original Nyx Plainswalker, but this guy is still fun. Demons, draw cards. This is kind of Demon Tribal Black Devotion-ish. Not as Black Devotion as my zombie deck, but so obviously the draw cards ability, destroying creatures in a clutch is nice. And if I get the emblem, which I can sometimes, it's just mean. People just hate running into this thing. Sanitarium Skeleton. I love something with recursion. If I had enough zombies in this deck, I might have run Gravecrawler because that's my favorite recursion card in the whole game. But, this guy, he helps out a lot. He's a sack outlet. He's a blocker. He's an attacker when I need him to be. He's a spell, end of the battlefield trigger. He's just very, very functional. Skursdag High Priest. Morbid. Things die when this deck is around. So I like Morbid. I'm actually thinking about moving this more into a Morbid deck, but the problem is if my opponent plays creature, it doesn't play creatures, but sack outlets. So, tap 2 creature control, but a 5/5 black demon with flying. Love it. I love it, love it, love it. This, just missed the cut in some of my other decks, but I love this thing. Skyclave Shade. Man, this thing actually is really annoying. I love the fact that it just comes back constantly. I know it can't block, but it's fun. I love the fact that I can play it kicked or non-kicked, and I just know I can kill it and then landfall it, and then I can play it however I need to. Like, I love the versatility of this thing, and it's an annoying little flyer, or it's an annoying little attacker. I said flyer, didn't mean that. It's just fun. Nantuku Shade, and it's the original from the deck. Wow. I thought most of the deck originals were out of here. I fell in love with this thing back in the days of Torment. Regular viewers have probably heard me wax poetic about Torment long enough, but I loved this card. And, this deck can get a decent amount of black mana going, and I will love blowing it on this card. The Ammon Eternal. I love the Afflict. Love that ability. And then just whenever anybody casts a spell, it gets weaker and weaker. But all I have to do is just nail my opponent once with it. I thought this was terrible until I started using it in 60 card games back in the days of Magic Duels with Hour of Devastation. Thank you. And at my LGS, but I was able to build the decks I wanted in Duels. It was easier. And I just realized how mean this thing got. And I love it. Tabarax, Hope's Demise. A lot of new demons from recent times. I love the fact that, again, basically Morbid. Well, non-token, but Morbid, he just combos off so hard. And, you know, a lot of times whenever I need to pay life, if I ever do get enough to, like, really trick this deck out with potence and such, the lifelink is going to be insane, and the cards I'm going to be able to amass is insane. But still, right now, he deals a ton of damage for such a cheap cost. Vargoth, Blood Sky Sire. You know, I'm still on the fence as to whether I like Boast or not, but this is a great one. You know, he's an annoying 2/3 death touch, and he just lets you search. You know, I can't complain about that. I really, really love his cost for that. You know, these cheaper demons really caught my eye, and that they added a lot of the creatures to this deck that are in it now. Jaren, Corrupted Bishop. Oh man, just more dying, just more dying. You know, whenever he enters the battlefield, another human, non-token human dies. You know, you lose 1 life and create 1/1 human. You know, target humans gain lifelink. You know, there's enough ways to create silly stuff like that. If you have exactly 13 life, you can pay and transform him. So he's not really relied upon. And of course, Ormondal the Corruptor. Now, by complete accident, I have to say this. I thought I had another copy of Westvale Abbey, which makes the original Ormondal. It also makes cleric tokens. I'd forgotten that I traded it. So I had every intention of this having a copy of Westvale when I put this in here. And it wasn't until I was going over the deck list that I was like, oh my god, I don't have a copy of Westvale. So if you were to take out 1 swamp for Westvale Abbey, if you have it, which I intend to get another Westvale for this deck, like the clerics and just transforming both. Maybe not the 13 life, that's always hard, but it's also a nice, it's a clutch saver, you know. Please don't fall. My rig is so fragile. Embodiment of Agonies, this is a fun guy. Oh man, we need to go faster. You know, +1/+1 for every mana cost among non-land cards in our graveyard. So pretty much the devotion mechanic, kind of, sort of. A lot of things are going to wind up in the graveyard on both sides. So, you know, this really helps. And I have some expensive stuff. The top curve of this deck is probably the highest of any other deck. Any deck. 1 or 2. This is my Rakdos deck. Because I run Rakdos, you know, he reduced the cost of everything. So that's got Eldrazi in it. That's got, you know, all 3 Titans. So that's, but as far as hard casting, this has got the top curve, highest curve of any deck I made. So this guy can go crazy. And again, that mana cost. Dread Presence. Whenever a swamp controller enters the battlefield, draw a card and lose 1 life, or he deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. I got a lot of swamps in this deck. This was an auto-include. Fate Unraveler. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Fate Unraveler deals 1 damage to that player. It's just nice, annoying, and punishing. And it really adds up. Especially when you're playing a blue or a blue and red player, you know, somebody's got like Niv Mizzet going on, and you just start throwing that damage right back at them. Disciple of Bolas. You know, gaining life and drawing those cards can be a real lifesaver. This guy I don't always want to play, but it's always nice to get him in my hand and use him for those clutch situations. You know, actually, you know, play Jiren when your life is that low, flip him, and then, you know, cast Disciple of Bolas, sack something, try and make some of that life back. Abyssal Persecutor. Speaking of sack outlets, or sack targets, sacrificing this thing. I love just casting him early, beating on somebody, and either they destroy it, or actually a lot of people like to keep this thing alive so I don't win. And that, like I said, in Duel Commander, this is abusive. Eventually you sack it, and that's just mean. More sacrificing. Demon of Catastrophes. You know, 6/6 for 4. Additional cost to this spell. You know, sacrifice a creature. So, 4 mana, 6/6 with trample, with an annoying drawback. 4/4, 6/6 with trample that lets me sack something. Yes, I have literally swung with this, played Demon of Catastrophes, and sacked this to it. Oh, it gets so mean. Solemn Simulacrum. Another great sacrificial card. You know, it also gets you the land. It also gets you the card when it dies. You know, it's just a nice thing to have. Blood Gift Demon. You know, Phyrexia Arena on legs. I'm still a 5/4 flying for 5. You know, I love this thing. It's one of my favorite demons. I need this in my Kalia deck for the mana, so, you know, that'll tell you how much I respect that card. Demon of Wailing Agonies. Again, Lieutenant. I don't know how many people love or hate Lieutenant, but I personally love it. Especially when you have a commander who can protect himself like the original Obnix. Or even, I suppose, Tavesh with his Thralls. You know, he becomes a 6/6 for 5, and when he deals combat damage to a player, the player sacrifices a creature. I love that, which also triggers a lot of the morbid stuff. Doom Whisperer. 5 for a 6/6 trample. I don't even need the Surveil, mainly because I've taken out most of the reanimation cards for this deck, unfortunately, and that's my bad. Again, I've just needed to strip this deck for parts at some points. I'm trying to bring it back to its former glory as a demon card draw ramp deck. But, you know, I like it. I love it just for its stats, and the Surveil is just gravy on top. Every monocolored black deck needs this. This does not have to go in a zombie deck. Just, you know, just a heavily favored black deck, or better yet, a mono black deck. I love this thing. Dreamstone Hedron, you know. Oh, I always thought that whoops. Wrong part of that deck. Nightmare. Once again, swamps are just the money. So a mono black deck. My zombie deck doesn't run this, but I always want to. Just because it's a big-ass flyer. But in this deck, this thing just crashes. This is one of my favorite closers. I love it. It's simple, it's straightforward. Narfox. I wondered if I'd get to this deck tech and he would still be in here. I once said in my Kalia deck that my Eternal Dragon is useful, but it's always the one that's, I think it was Eternal Dragon I said, was always on the edge of being replaced by something better. Actually, maybe that was one of my more recent deck techs. But that's where I feel about this. I don't think Exalted works as well as it wants to. I do like the sacrificing a creature. That has been wonderful. I've considered replacing it with my one copy of Phyrexian Obliterator, but, you know, I like the fact that this happens on an attack trigger and it flies. But I'm always thinking that I'm always one really good, that demon. And this is probably going to get the first cut. But it works right now. Burning Rune Demon. You know, 6/6 for 6. Flying. You know, search your library for exactly 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon that have different names. You know, if you do, reveal those cards and the opponent chooses one. Put one into hand and the other into the graveyard. So this is great to get 2 top curvy demons out. Or, you know, 2 cards with some sort of recursion on their own. Just make life miserable. Ascendant Evincer. Finally, a mono black deck so I can run this thing. I love this thing a lot. I don't know, when I was a young player and this was relatively newer to the scene, I wanted to run this so hard, but I always ran like black and red, red, black and green. You know, I never had mono black decks until my zombie deck, and this was just too expensive for those zombie decks. I always wanted to run this thing. I love it. It says Ascendant Evincer. Why didn't we just say Crovax? Because that's obviously Crovax. The picture of Crovax, the flavor text is Crovax. If you read the story, you know it's Crovax. The newest member of the gang. Forget what I kicked out for this. Lord of the Forsaken. Another 6/6 flying trample. That is the going rate of demons. So sacrificing another creature, target player mills 3 cards. You know, pay 1 life and, you know, add a color list. Spend this mana to cast a spell from your graveyard. Now, that doesn't mean you can. It just means if you can do it. And we have to remember that. That's like wording on Chainer. You know, he lets you cast a card. This is so you can cast it. If you can cast a card, Like, that's the whole thing. You're not automatically getting the privilege from Lord of the Forsaken. Pontiff of Blight. Just a nice little huge blocker who also, allows you to take advantage of Extort. Extort. This is reminder text. So, being that this is reminder text, that white symbol does not count. So I know some people there's been a heavy debate about it, but at the end of the day, that white mana symbol is considered reminder text because it's not here. Other creatures have Extort, so this is legal in Mono Black Commander, or a Mono Black Commander deck. The recently deposed Bells and Lock. I really wanted more of a story with the 4 demons of Liliana's contract. For how much he built up Dominaria, or the Cabal in his image, and really took over Dominaria as the dominant bad guy, I was really hoping for a little bit more juice to his story. You'd also say he's also the biggest poser in history. So Demon Lord Bells and Lock. There's the battlefield, exile stuff from the top until you find a non-land card put in your hand. If it's 4 or greater, repeat the process. There's 1 damage to you for each card put in your hand this way. 1 damage in Commander is not bad. I love the odds of it having a high casting cost are pretty good with this deck. Nyxilis Unshackled. So, whenever an opponent searches his or her library, they sacrifice a creature and lose 10 life. This thing is so mean. People don't think it's gonna hurt them that bad until simple fetch lands and stuff late in the game. Obviously it doesn't hit those early fetches, but I love this thing. And whenever a creature dies, get counters. I just love it sitting there and being a nuisance. I love not attacking with it because everyone wants me to attack it into them so they can kill it. And I just sit back and go, no. I'm just going to prevent you from searching. Dread. Whenever a creature deals damage to you, destroy it. So I expect to take some shots take a lot of hits on the shoulder during this deck. Because there's a high CMC. This alone is 6 mana. So it's nice to cost my opponents something when they hit me. Yes, sometimes it comes out too late to work. Yes. But also, there are times when it comes out and it's just fine. Zathra Demon. Sacrifice at your upkeep, sacrifice a creature other than it. Then each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. If you can't sacrifice a creature, tap Zathra Demon and you lose 7 life. A 7/7 flying trample for 6 is just gravy. And again, there's a lot of expensive stuff. And a lot of expensive stuff with annoying caveats that hurt me. So I'm willing to sacrifice a lot, especially in the late game when I just want to turn this thing sideways in the air and beat people to death. Reaper from the Abyss. Alright, as far as demons go, that might be my favorite demon art that's not linked to a red and black legendary demon from Ravnica. Seriously, this is what a demon should look like. That was not too bad. Yeah, some of these are pretty good. Bells and Lock's a little underwhelming. He's just a muscly dude. That one's actually pretty cool. But Nora Fox, too much in shadow. But this guy, the scythe, the Bolas horns, the wings. Again, a morbid trigger. I'm always down for morbid triggers. A creature just died this turn, destroy target non-demon. And which adds 2 other morbid triggers. Rune Scarred. So, Demonic Tutor on 6/6. I like it. Maybe paying 7 mana is a little much, which is why, I've thought about putting it in my Kalia deck if I ever want to really ramp that up. Get him into play free, and then he searches up the next monster to put into play. But still, he's nice here. Definitely helpful. Overseer of the Damned. Another card I can't believe is still in this deck. I like the fact that it's a 5/5 flyer for 7, but I also get to nuke something when it comes into play. And then, of course, if that dies and it's not a token, I get a zombie. And again, that's a half morbid, so stuff like this. Just there's a lot of just there's a lot of self-generating engines of stuff dying in this deck. And that's where this thing really gets mean. Again, in Duel Commander, it tends to be a lot more creatures just beating the hell out of each other, at least in my playgroup, in my experience at my LGS and stuff like that. Duel Commander tends to be a lot more slugfest. So this kind of stuff, I think that's really why this deck has thrived. Devouring Strosis. Beginning of my upkeep, sacrifice creature. 9/9 flying trample for 8. Again, let this get on the board, let it live and swing for a couple of turns, and then sack it to something. You know? This thing is just so good when it can do its job. Or its high mana cost will, trigger some other spells. Reaver Demon. This guy looks way too much like Grinning Demon from Judgment. Comes into play if you played it from your hand. Destroy target non-artifact, all non-artifact, non-black creatures that can't be regenerated. Obviously, if I'm in a mirror match in another mono black deck, this is overpriced and terrible. Can't even destroy artifact creatures, which can be really annoying. But he works more often than he does not. And, I might specially sideboard him out for something if I know I'm playing another mono. Hero Pitlord. 9 mana, 9/9, 4 for the upkeep. So, the answer to my Dragon Tyrant, I love paying the mana to keep him alive just so I can pay 1 life to just keep, or pay as much life as I have to just keep the board in my favor. That's really what this is about. Also, just clear the skies for the demons is really what I do. I let him hit the board, I pay as much life as I have to, then usually I've got at least a decent army of demons and I can swing and take out one player. Or my straight-up opponent in Duel Commander, which is when I tend to bring this out. This... Flying Trample, protection from black, first strike when attacking, and haste. This is not the best demon for 9 mana. It's not the best demon, period. But this was one of those when I was early getting into Magic, when I watched somebody play this, and I just could not believe this thing existed. We're talking... late invasion block, early Aussie block, so I didn't think anything like this could exist. And this is a sentimental pick. This is a purely sentimental pick. It is sat in my binder. I love it, and I want a reason to play it. It does count as a demon if you look on Oracle text. It is a demon, and it had to be in here. It had to be in here, and I'm not sorry. All right, so that's all the demons. That's all the creatures, and as you saw, there's 3 9 mana cards in here, or two and a bunch of 8 manas. So it's a high curve deck. So Bad Moon, why not? It's a mono black deck. Hecatomb. Sacrificing 4 creatures is easy, and tapping those swamps to just mill somebody. This is basically my ultimate end game. When they say you can't quite get through with creature damage, this is a beautiful finisher. And, Infernal Darkness. I love to keep a non-black player out of the game with this thing. It's mean and it costs me. And then, once I'm ahead enough, then I can really get going. Let this card die, and then go with my... That's the thing. This is a nice stalling card. I think this is another reason this deck works so well. Black Market. As I said, a lot of death, a lot of stuff dying, a lot of dead creatures. And this just pays dividends so much. It just wasn't fast enough for my zombie deck. I wanted it to be. Liliana's Contract. People hate when I win with this card. Draw 4 cards, lose 4 life. 4 or more demons with different names, you win the game. Not even legendary demons. This thing is so much fun. This is my backhanded combo win. It's my favorite. My two favorite ways to win with this deck are with its enchantments. You know, pinging people to death with Hecatomb, or just making them realize, I'm about to win unless you can get rid of this enchantment. Oh, you're done. I win. Sorceries. Knight's Whisper. Draw cards, lose 2 life. Read the Bones. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, scry 2. So, like, you know, this is all about just getting what I need. Victimize. Another great sack outlet. Just getting rid of something I have, you know, to bring 2 back from the graveyard. That is just a great, great weapon. Again, sometimes I need to get rid of my own deprecating cards like the Strosis, maybe Bloodgift Demon if I'm taking too much of a hit on it. Maybe I need the Abyssal Persecutor to go away finally so I can win. You know, Unnerve and Siphon Mind. Just 2 cards that I utterly love. Just each other player, each of your opponents, you know. I like this, and I draw cards off this one, and this one nails 2 cards. These 2 are worded nicely. Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. Hoo boy. You know, put up to 1 target creature or Plainswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Destroy up to 1 target creature, Plainswalker, and exile this card. I love this. This is just nasty. Yeah, it needs legendary, but there's enough demons and planeswalkers and stuff like that are on the field that make it work. Promise of Power. Here's a fun one. You know, Giant Demon, or, you know, the 5 life and 5 cards. Like, this is just great, versatile, and it's power to the cause. These are the 2 things this deck wants to do. You know, trade life for cards, or get a big demon. You know, Taste of Death. Each player sacrifices 3 creatures. I create 3 food. I didn't realize how useful this was until I just, you know, started losing all that life. Back when this card first came out, I tried it out, and it was just awesome. I realized I didn't mind sacrificing 3 creatures. I realized, especially with now with Tevesh Zap, this thing is even worse. If I can just sacrifice useless thralls to this thing, then I don't even feel the hit. This card has gotten better with Tevesh Zap being the commander. Torn of Hellfire. You know, each opponent loses 3 life unless that person sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. Another late game middle finger. This is another great closer, or a setup to my closer. I like to do this kind of thing if I know that they can't sacrifice much, because I want to empty a person's hand so they can't stop Liliana's contract. This is usually a big setup play to Liliana's contract. Tragic Slip. Again, it's really unfortunate my opponent's not playing creatures at all, because there are so many morbid triggers or death triggers overall. I wish there was enough that I could run zombies in this deck that I would run Gravecrawler, because he would just be an all-star, just dying, coming back, dying, coming back, dying, coming back. But I can't. Sanitarium Skeleton's the best I got. But still, the fact that this can just be a 13-13, I said in my last video, or in my one of them, I want to say it was my Kalia video. No, it was probably my zombie video. I was talking about, you know, getting -X. And it's like, that kills gods. That kills indestructible. That kills a lot of annoying stuff. And I love it. Murder. Short and simple. I love Murder. Probably could upgrade on the removal. But again, you know, it's what this deck has. Tendrils of Corruption. I love, you know, the Swamps Matter theme is another nice little thing. Just brutal. Exile cards from my graveyard. You know, Skeletal Scrying. This is nice. There's no real way to recur non-creatures from this deck, so this is great getting more value out of my spells that are already in my graveyard. Mind Stone. cheap mana and then card draw. You know, Charcoal Diamond. You know, I hate these things normally, but in monocolor decks, they're decent. Nah, they're kind of decent. Desecrated Tomb. When more and more creature cards leaves your graveyard, create a 1/1 back token, creature token with flying. There's enough recursion in this deck that can get fun. Worn Power Stone, again, tap for 2 mana. Nothing special, but now we go to Dreamstone Hedron. 6 for, you know, tap for 3 and then sacrifice for 3 cards. I love this because it adds to the graveyard that I can exile stuff for. It's also a sack trigger. And 3 cards are always nice. I want the 3 cards usually more than I want that colorless mana. Blood-Soaked Altar. Oh, this is fun. Getting demons into the graveyard. But just for cheap 5/5s. If I can't, you know, find a big monster in that moment, I can sacrifice my little stuff that might not have a greater impact on the board. That's my favorite thing. My little stuff can be discarded away to Blood-Soaked Altar in the late game, and it doesn't feel useless because I can still add to the board. And again, then, you know, all sorts of triggers and stuff like that. It's also a fun way to get rid of Sanitarium Skeleton, recurring that over and over and over again. So, you know, aside from killing everything my opponent controls, you know, this deck wants to just load up with flying, high toughness, high-powered demons with all sorts of nasty abilities. And if it can't win through combat damage or life loss effects, it really loves Liliana's Contract. You know, it's like there are those cards that you're like, man, if Commander would let me run 4 of these, yeah. This deck also reminds me why it's good that Grizzlebrand is not allowed, because man, Grizzlebrand would just take over. That would be too good. Even I have to admit that. So, oh well, it's only 37 minutes long, so it's under 40. I'm getting faster with these. Maybe it's because of the quick way I went through the mana base. But so that is my mono black demon deck. Again, not the most competitive, beefy, heavy hitter I own. But this thing wins more than I thought it would. Especially in 1v1 Commander, this thing is mean. And if I ever decide to tweak the mana base and really up the stakes, I've thought about Burnished Heart instead of that Hedron, but I love the card draw. I've thought about a couple of different improvements I could make, but right now, this deck is fun to play. It's fun to play, it's mean, it survives, it holds its own. It doesn't really win 4-person Commander, but it has a huge effect on the board. I'm going to put thank you to one of my viewers commenting on my last video about a printed deck list for my zombie deck. So I'm going to start leaving my tapped out links to these decks as I put them out. So that'll be in the description. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm probably going to get another mini video out at some point this week. Maybe an extra deck tech. I'm trying to figure out what other decks I want to put out between now and Halloween. I definitely want to get my Snake deck, my Snake Death Touch deck out here. Although, like I said, even I thought it was a little too casual. So I gotta work on that a little bit before I think it's presentable. I'll crack that on camera. Also, probably Halloween morning, that Saturday into Sunday, I am going to do my Rakdos deck. I thought that was the most Halloween flavored inspired deck. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love that thing so much. It's mean. I actually splurged. I just got a bunch of stuff online, so I'm going to be adding to that deck. I'm adding a missing Titan that I didn't have for it. I just ordered some better Manic-based cards. I ordered Blood Crypt and a Luxury Suites. So by the time that deck makes it to camera, it's going to be even more mean than it already is. And all my friends say it's too mean already. So thank you guys for joining me. I can't wait for you guys to see what you guys think about this one. And I'll be back soon with either that pre-release kit opening or some sort of video while the week is out. I have another week of vacation, so I'm going to try and make another video. I also realized some of my decks are not camera ready. So that's why this was also a couple of days late. My original plans just fell through, so I need to tweak a bunch of decks in the near future so they're good for showing a deck tech list. So that's it. Thank you guys for joining me, and see you next time. I need to work on my outros.